He is the patron saint of American ingenuity, the man who gave us light, sound, and the modern age, a face on school walls, a name synonymous with genius, Thomas Alva Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park. Over 1,000 patents, an industrial empire, a life story that became legend. But legends have shadows, and Edison's shadow is long. This is the story they don't teach in school. To understand the darkness, you must first understand the light. Thomas Edison was born in Milan, Ohio, in 1847, the seventh child of a struggling family. Largely self-taught after only a few months of formal schooling, he was restless, driven, and relentlessly ambitious. By the time he established his famous laboratory in Menlo Park, New Jersey in 1876, Edison had already developed a genius for something beyond invention, self-promotion. He understood that in the new age of mass media, perception was power. He cultivated journalists. He staged demonstrations. He leaked stories. He was, in many ways, the first celebrity inventor, and he curated that celebrity with ruthless precision. But beneath the carefully constructed image of the lone genius toiling through the night, a very different story was unfolding. One of stolen credit, industrial sabotage, deliberate cruelty, and the relentless crushing of rivals. Edison famously said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. What he failed to mention was whose perspiration he was talking about, and the late it seemed. The Menlo Park Laboratory was not a solo operation. It was an industrial research facility, staffed by dozens of skilled scientists, engineers, and technicians. Edison called them his muckers. They worked grueling hours, often through the night, for modest pay and virtually no credit. The patents, all of them, went to Edison. The credit, all of it, went to Edison. The men who solved the actual engineering problems, who ran the actual experiments, who made the actual breakthroughs, they were erased from the store. Charles Batchelor, John Cruisi, Francis Upton. These names are almost entirely forgotten today. Yet without them, there is no practical light bulb, there is no phonograph, there is no Edison empire. And then there is the most famous case of all, the story of the man Edison wronged more profoundly than perhaps anyone else, a young Serbian immigrant named Nikola Tesla. Tesla arrived in New York in 1884 with almost nothing, a letter of introduction and a mind that may have been the most extraordinary of the age. He went to work for Edison and immediately impressed his employer with his extraordinary problem-solving ability. Edison, whose DC, direct current, electrical systems were plagued with inefficiency problems, tasked Tesla with redesigning them. Tesla threw himself into the work. The improvements he produced were substantial and significant. According to Tesla's own account, Edison had promised him $50,000 if he succeeded. When Tesla came to collect, Edison laughed. The offer, Edison reportedly told him, had been a joke. "Tesla," he said, "you don't understand our American humor." Tesla quit. He would go on to develop alternating current, AC, a fundamentally superior system of electrical transmission. It would change the world, and Edison would spend years and enormous resources trying to destroy it and the man who invented it. What followed became known as the War of Currents, one of the most brutal, cynical, and morally indefensible corporate campaigns in American history, and Edison was at its center. Edison had a financial empire built on direct current. His investors, including the powerful J.P. Morgan, had sunk millions into DC infrastructure. When Tesla's superior alternating current threatened to render all of it obsolete, Edison did not respond with better technology. He responded with fear. Edison launched a deliberate, calculated public relations campaign to convince the American public that alternating current was lethally dangerous. He was not entirely wrong. High-voltage AC is dangerous, but his methods went far beyond legitimate safety concerns. Edison's laboratory began secretly acquiring AC generators, Tesla's own technology, and using them to publicly electrocute animals, dogs, calves, horses. The demonstrations were staged for journalists, for local officials, for anyone who would watch. The message was explicit. Alternating current kills. Don't let it into your home. Don't let it into your city. The Wizard of Menlo Park said so. The campaign reached its most disturbing peak on January 4th, 1903, at Luna Park in Coney Island, New York. On that day, in front of a crowd of paying spectators, an elephant named Topsy was publicly electrocuted. Topsy had killed 3 men, one of whom had reportedly fed her a lit cigarette. She had been condemned to death. The method chosen was electrocution using alternating current. Edison's team filmed the event, one of the earliest motion pictures ever made. The film was distributed widely. Whether Edison personally approved the filming is debated by historians. What is not debated is the context. The event fit perfectly into his anti-AC campaign. He had spent years connecting alternating current to death. Topsy was, in every sense, the culmination of that effort. The word electrocute, a portmanteau of electricity and execute, had been coined during this same campaign. Edison had originally pushed for the AC electric chair to be called Westinghousing, after his rival George Westinghouse, who had partnered with Tesla. The goal was to brand his competitor's name with death itself. It didn't work. Alternating current won. It powers our world today. But the campaign revealed something essential about Edison's character. He would do almost anything to win. Perhaps no single invention is more associated with Edison than the light bulb. The image, a glowing bulb above a head, has become the universal symbol of the idea itself. But the history of the light bulb is considerably more complicated than the mythology suggests. Edison did not invent the light bulb. He improved it, significantly, importantly, and in ways that made it commercially viable. But at least 22 inventors had developed forms of incandescent light before Edison filed his famous patent in 1879. Among them, Humphrey Davy, Warren de la Rue, and perhaps most critically, British inventor Joseph Swan. Swan had demonstrated a working incandescent lamp in England in early 1879, before Edison's public demonstration. When Edison tried to market his bulb in Britain, Swan sued and won. Edison was ultimately forced to make Swan his business partner in the British market. Yet the story that reached history books, school curricula, and popular culture was simple. Edison invented the light bulb, full stop. The same pattern repeated itself with motion pictures. Edison's laboratory, specifically his employee William Kennedy Laurie Dixon, developed the kinetoscope, an early motion picture device. Dixon's contributions were foundational. Edison's were largely supervisory responsibility. More troubling was what Edison did once the motion picture industry began to grow. In 1908, he formed the Motion Picture Patents Company, a cartel that pooled the patents of major film producers and attempted to control the entire American film industry. Independent filmmakers who refused to pay Edison's licensing fees found their equipment confiscated, their films seized, their studios raided by Edison's enforcers. Some historians credit this aggressive monopolism more than any other single factor with driving the film industry to California, far from Edison's reach in New Jersey. Hollywood, in other words, may exist partly because of Thomas Edison's thuggery. Edison's public image was that of the dedicated American family man. The reality, by most accounts, was starkly different. His first wife, Mary Stilwell, whom he married in 1871 when she was 16, reportedly lived in near isolation. Edison was consumed by his work, often spending days at a stretch in the laboratory without coming home. Friends and family described Mary as lonely, neglected, and poorly understood by her husband. Mary died in 1884 at age 29. The cause was listed as typhoid fever, though some historians have suggested brain tumors or morphine, then commonly prescribed, may have been involved. Edison reportedly wept at her bedside, then returned to the lab. His relationship with his children, particularly his eldest son, Thomas Edison Jr., was deeply troubled. The younger Edison struggled under the weight of his father's name and was repeatedly exploited by con men who used the Edison name for fraudulent patent medicine schemes. Edison Sr. responded not with compassion but with legal threats, demanding his son stop using the Edison name entirely. Edison's treatment of his workers extended beyond Menlo Park. As his empire expanded into manufacturing, the conditions in his factories came under scrutiny. The Edison Battery Company and other manufacturing operations were known for demanding hours, dangerous working conditions, and minimal pay. Edison was openly hostile to labor unions. He believed, with missionary conviction, that men who worked for him should be grateful for the opportunity, and that any organized effort to improve their conditions was a form of ingratitude. For a man who presented himself as a champion of the American working man, his treatment of actual working men was often callous. Thomas Edison died on October 18, 1931. He was 84 years old. President Herbert Hoover asked Americans to dim their electric lights for 1 minute in his honor. It was a fitting tribute, the world he had helped build pausing to acknowledge him. And here's the complicated truth about Thomas Edison. The darkness does not erase the light. The phonograph was real. The improvements to the light bulb were real and transformative. The Industrial Research Laboratory, the concept that organized, team-driven innovation could systematically produce technological breakthroughs, was a genuine and lasting contribution to human civilization. Every corporate R&D department on Earth is, in some sense, Edison's child. Every patent portfolio, every innovation pipeline, the model he invented, for better and for worse, is the model the world still runs on. But the men he erased deserved better. The animals he killed deserved better. The workers he exploited deserved better. His wife deserved better. His son deserved better. History has a tendency to flatten its heroes, to sand away the contradiction and complexity until what remains is a usable myth. Thomas Edison is perhaps the most extreme example of this process in American history. He was, undeniably, one of the most consequential figures of the modern age. He was also a man capable of significant cruelty, profound dishonesty, and a hunger for credit and control that bordered on the pathological. The light bulb, his symbol, his legacy, the image the whole world associates with a bright idea, works by burning a filament, consuming it, reducing it to nothing so that light can exist. Perhaps that is the most honest metaphor for Thomas Edison we have.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really helps us.